Hey, welcome back to the Air Cave Shop, everybody. I'm Dean, and we're still working on the new to the shop Enco Lathe. We made some good progress, milestones in this episode, although it was slow going. Our whole family group got really hit hard by the cold and flu season, and boy, it took almost all of us down. I thought I was going to skate by. I was the last one to get it, but it finally got me as well. So I spent a lot of time, doing caregiver duties, trips to the pharmacy, cooking, grocery store, all that kind of stuff. So burned up a lot of time, but you got to do it. So anyways, yeah, so some of these video clips might be a little choppy. I was having trouble. I didn't completely lose my voice, but boy, tough time speaking. You get a few words out and you'd start coughing, or your throat would just lock up on you. So I had to reshoot a lot of the clips. So anyways, apologies for that. And anyways, let's just dive right into it and have a look at what we've done. I want to build a tool holding rail. That will mount up here somehow, and I've already cut out a bunch of tabs that I can weld on to this rail that will hold the AXA tool holders, something like that, all lined up. This is the first time I've used the spot welding feature on my MIG welder, and essentially what it does is you've got an on-time adjustment. This sets how long it will weld for in up to 2 seconds, and then you've got a burn back. So what happens when you pull the trigger on the gun, it starts welding until it reaches whatever time setting you have here, and then the wire stops feeding, but the machine will continue welding for however many seconds you've got set here, so you get a little burn back on the wire. This one is non-functional from what I can tell when you're in the spot mode. Okay, so yeah, I've never used this feature before, so it's a bit of a learning curve. So I've been testing on some scrap here. First I started over here just to see what kind of a spot it would make, and then I've been working my way down. I think I'm getting pretty good on the settings. I'm going to do a few more tests. And then once I'm comfortable, I'll see if I can get a arc shot set up for you guys. I tried to record an arc shot. I don't know if it's going to turn out or not, but I tried. So these first two, the spacing is different because these are going to be for the boring bar holders, which are wider, and of course they point the other direction. Okay, so then this will be the standard spacing, so I'm just going to keep on going. I'm going to get one side tacked all the way down and flip it around and do the other side. We got all our spot welding done. Still got to clean it up just a little bit more. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the way this came out, especially for the first time using that spot welding feature. Most of them are looking pretty good. We got a couple little goof ups. Nothing that a good coat of paint won't hide. Doesn't look too bad after a nice Earl Shives paint job. Okay, yeah, and then on this end I want to build a small plate with some holes so I can drop in Morse taper tools for the tailstock. Not a lot of them, maybe 6 or so, just the ones that you typically use most of the time. Okay, the tool holder for the tailstock accessories is done. I'm happy the way it turned out. This one chamfer here had a little problem with that one, but the others look really nice. The tool rail is completed and ready to mount. I'm handheld, so try to do this without wiggling too much. So this is going to go on here. Something like that. I've still got to drill the mounting holes right here and on the other end as well. Got it mounted and just testing how it's going to look and fit and so forth with some tool holders in there. So I think that's going to work out. This lathe came with these 1/2 inch thick plywood spacer plates underneath the mounting pads, between the mounting pads and the chip tray. Here's the one on the headstock end. So I was kind of on the fence whether or not I wanted to keep these, and I didn't want them to be wood. So about halfway through the backsplash build, I realized that, I'm mounting the backsplash to the chip tray and also to the headstock. So now that spacing is factored into the backsplash. So I figure, okay, well, we're going to keep the spacer plates, but let's make some new ones. I don't recommend trying this at home. Pushing the limit on the import horizontal bandsaw. So it won't quite go halfway through, then I flip it over, and then I have to do a really sketchy, low angle, kind of handheld, about a 1 inch cut in the center to finish it off. It's a little on the tricky side. So here we go. I had some extra, an old piece of 1/2 inch cold rolled plate. This was one big piece. Very rusty piece, by the way. Well, not super rusty, but definitely rusty. The challenge was cutting this. So I didn't want to flame cut it, and I don't think my plasma cutter would like the 1/2 inch too well. It's 3/8 is pretty much the limit on the one that I have. So believe it or not, I ended up cutting this with the 4x6 bandsaw. Then I put it in the Bridgeport and cleaned up the that edge and just that edge on this one. This one here didn't need to be as wide, so ended up taking a little off each side. Yeah, so that was a job getting that cut. And then of course I got the holes laid out, drilled. I went just slightly oversized on the holes, just to give us a little bit of fudge factor. Well guys, not a complete fail, but not spectacular results either. I think it'll be good enough for our needs. I already gave them a light coating of oil. So really hard to get a consistent finish, kind of blotchy. And still got a few scratches in there and so forth. But at least it'll give it some protection. And we're going to be gluing these down with some Celastic anyways when we do the final assembly, so just try to improve it a little bit. I think this is my third mock-up on what to do with these DRO cables, and I've been going with the theory that the simplest solution is the best solution. So I needed to leave room, enough slack, so that the cables can move back and forth as the carriage moves, but I didn't want them to drag in the chip tray for obvious reasons. So I think this is what we're going to go with. I did make a change here. You can see I took this sheet metal panel out. I was going to punch a hole through here and put a grommet and try to feed these cables through, but after looking at it, as any oil or coolant on the cabling will follow that cable down and go out through our grommet and end up dripping behind the lathe and on the motor and so forth. So I think just looping it over the top, not as elegant, but I think it's probably a better solution. So we're going to go that way. I did order some of that corrugated cable loom wrap. We'll see how that looks when we get it. We may or may not use that. So anyways, that's where we're at with the cabling. So I'm in the process of dismantling the backsplash and getting ready to actually lift the lathe off to get our chip pan out so that we can put that little drain sump in. Machinery shuffle day. So I cleaned up around the old lathe and put a lot of things away. So I've got to roll this lathe out and maybe the shaper also, and make room for the new lathe. And then I got to figure out how and where I'm going to store the old lathe and the shaper and a bunch of other stuff. So let the fun begin. My existing VFD for the old lathe. Here's how I've got it set up. So for the control cabling, I just used the computer 9-pin cord, serial type cord, so it can just unplug. And then for the motor lead, it's just a 4-conductor. It's actually a generator cord, but it's got 4 conductors, so ground plus the 3 phases, twist lock. And then of course the work light, that just plugs in on a regular cord. Yeah, so there you go. Controls are unhooked. Motor leads unhooked. VFD's unhooked. That makes life easy. I got the old south bend moved out of the way using the ever popular Egyptian method. Alright, so that's the preliminary location, and I just got it temporarily leveled up, the base that is. We'll do a final leveling once we get everything on there. And I've got it at an angle, that way if I ever have a real long piece of stock, I can always let it run out through the garage door. Pretty slim odds that'll ever happen, but you never know. Okay, let me get the chip pan ready. So I don't know if this is a good idea or a bad idea, but you can see the way these mounting pads are slightly elevated above the cabinet. So what I'm doing, I got some foam weather stripping. This stuff's pretty soft. It squishes down real thin. So I'm just running that weather stripping all around the perimeter to, kind of help support the chip pan and should also dampen any tinniness. So, like I say, I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea, but we're going to see what happens. Okay, slight adjustment. So after I test fit the chip pan, I took out a section here of the foam because this is where our drain sump is. So hopefully that will make this area slightly lower. I don't know if it'll work or not, but I'm going to try it. Okay, we're getting close to doing this. Got the lathe moved over here. I'm setting up the cherry picker. All right, I've got the spacer plates on here, and I've glued them down with silicone Celastic on the underside. And you can see I put the bolts in from the bottom up, just below the surface, because I don't want these to slide around once I start setting the lathe on here. Same on this side, okay? So, and then I put a thin coat of whey oil on the top because I'm going to have to manhandle this around, slide it around a little bit to line things up because I can't get the cherry picker, dead center of the lift. And I'm not going to show you how I'm rigging it because it's not by the book, all right? And I don't want anybody to do it like I'm doing it and then get in trouble. All right, let me see if I can get this thing on here. Guys, that worked outstanding. So running them bolts up from the bottom side just flush so that the spacer plates wouldn't move around, that was the key. And then I'm sure glad I made these out of steel, those spacer plates, because I did have to slide the machine around to get it to line up. And had I made them out of aluminum, which was one of my thoughts, it would have just dug in. So a little bit of whey oil on those, man, it was easy to slide it around. Ooh, easy to slide it around and get it lined up. All right, now I got to flip all those bolts over and permanently bolt it down. All right, guys, let's take a look at where we're at. So we had a little bit of a snafu with our hold down bolts. So when I ordered these, I calculated out the length, but at that time I wasn't planning on putting these spacers in. So we're ½ inch short. Now, our local hardware stores, they do carry some metric fasteners, but it's always a crapshoot. So it's much easier just to order them and get exactly what you need. So I've got them ordered. It should be here tomorrow. We did get our Celastic silicone underneath the pads, so we're sealed to the chip pan. Just the weight of the lathe is enough to compress that, so we're good there. We still got to do final leveling. I'm not going to do any final leveling until everything is on. We did throw our accessories in the shelves here. What else we got to do? We got to get powered up. So I'm not 100% sure how I want to do it yet. I'm probably going to put a receptacle in and a plug. I don't think I want to hardwire it. I've got to look in my inventory and see if I have the components to do that. So we got to get it under power. We still got the backsplash to put on, the DRO. We've got, of course, the tool post needs to go on. Yeah, I also want to evaluate what I'm doing with this back wall here, because most of this stuff is for the South Bend lathe. All these face plates and chucks will only fit the South Bend. And it's always been a struggle, trying to reach over the lathe or getting behind it to get anything that's back there, especially the collets. So I want to reevaluate that, and then also that shelf over there. It's always hard to get to. So, while I'm doing this, I might as well just, try to encompass everything and try to come up with a better workflow. A couple other things I want to look at is a work light. We have a nice work light over on the South Bend, but it would be nice to have one for this machine. Now, since this is a newer machine, I think a modern style LED work light would be good. There's like 100 different kinds to choose from. So if anybody's got suggestions on what works good for them as far as the different types of work lights, and you got the goosenecks and you got the articulating type and so forth. Yeah, so I've just started looking at those. I need to make a chuck key holder for, you know, a few chuck keys. Maybe on the backsplash, maybe something over here. I'm planning on cutting out a steel plate that I can set on here, you know, the stick mag indicators and the like. Yeah, and probably a toolbox on the upper shelf. I've kind of been looking at a couple, and I've, you know, I incorporated the dimensions in that would fit some of the ones I was looking at. So, yeah, it's a lot of work getting one of these set up, you know. And I mean, you can just throw things together and get it working, but you know, it's, you know, as soon as you do something temporary, it becomes permanent. So I got some time. I would like to try to get everything the way that makes the most sense. It works for me in the process. Oh, I did order a baking sheet to go on the chip pan. I use one on the south end. It's really handy. That way you can just pull the baking sheet out, take it over to your trash, dump out the chips, or you recycle wherever you're going. With me, it's usually the trash. So, yeah. So, we'll probably do one more episode focused on the lathe, and then the other things will just kind of fit in, you know, as time permits, and squeeze it into videos wherever we can. So, anyways, this is getting pretty long, so I'm going to cut this episode off here. And thanks for sticking with us and following along, guys. Alrighty, thanks. Hey, thanks, guys. I'll try to put together another short video when we get all the other items installed on the lathe, and maybe a first cut or two. So yeah, thanks for sticking with this, and if you think I deserved it, please give me a thumbs up. Alrighty, thanks again, guys, and we will see you on the next episode. Oh yeah, here's where the south bend ended up. So jury's still out on what we're going to do with this. Not going to do anything right away, but we'll see if we can work around it. Always kind of handy to have a second lathe, plus this one's got the taper attachment, but I've got a lot to do to get it powered back up over here. I've got to remount the VFD, got to get power to it, and you know, those kind of things. Alrighty.